So let's start. I think we are quite late. I can believe that if you are here, you might have already seen this, and then again this. So probably you have been rejected already. Even if you haven't been rejected, I think you will probably see this stamp. Unless you don't submit anything. If you don't submit any article, you will never get this response. But if you submit, be pretty sure to get such notifications, such replies. So, in fact, it's all the problem of the never-ending loop. So, and what makes you get rejected again and again when submitting an article or when submitting even an abstract for a normal communication and so on. So you have, but mainly for articles, you may get rejected and rejected again because of this loop. So you are happy, you have a good idea, you think that you have a very, very interesting, original idea, and you think that you're going to write and publish an article. So you start with an idea, then you you design the study, you conduct the study. It's often not that easy to design, to conduct studies, so you spend much time doing that, hoping to get published. And then you have results, you're happy with your results, you analyze the results, you do the statistic work, and then you find interesting results. So also you get excited, you get happy, you want to publish your article. Then you get to the fourth point. You actually write the manuscript. So it takes long, yeah, to write a good manuscript. You write the first draft, the second draft, the third draft. You send to your supervisor. The supervisor gives you ideas, comments. You adapt, you make changes, and then you have your final manuscript ready for submission. So you submit the manuscript, and you're really happy, you're satisfied. So it's over. You submitted the article.
It's rejected.
Guess what?
Rejected.
No. It's even more sadistic than this. You have to wait. No starts. You wait 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, sometimes 1 year, sometimes even more. You're just waiting. You're saying, maybe I got an email that got into my spam folder. You just check your spam folder. You log in into the journal website. You check. Still unreached. So you wait too long, in fact, sometimes more than a year.
Or you give up.
No, you just wait for your article to be published. Of course, in the meanwhile, you have completely forgotten about it. So you have already conducted other studies. Maybe you went, I don't know, to change your specialty. And then, after a long and terrible wait, you get the answer. Rejected. So yeah, of course you have a very nicely written email telling you that your work was of great interest and was a really valuable work, and they are very, very, they really regret that they cannot accept your article. Okay, so of course you get angry, you get sad. So you worked hard to have this article ready. You are sad and angry and say, yeah, these reviewers are saying rubbish, okay, I just modified just a little bit the article and send it to another journal. Maybe this second journal will be a little bit smarter, and maybe the reviewers and the editor will finally know how valuable my work is. And then you send, so you just modify it, maybe you spend 1 hour modifying your article a little bit, adapting it, and then, so you write again, you submit, and again, you wait. Months, sometimes more than a year, and then you get rejected again. And then you get angry, you modify a little bit, and then you get rejected again. So in fact, let's look at the emotional side of the story, and you understand why we have this loop. You were happy at the beginning. So having this idea, designing the study, carrying out the study, analyzing the results, and then writing even the manuscript, you're happy. So you have the drive to do this. And then you cross your fingers, you wish that your article is accepted, so you're hopeful and you're productive. But when you get rejected, you get angry. So you don't really modify the article too much. I mean, you just modify a single word or couple of words, and then you submit it again right away. Of course, you get rejected, and you get angry again, angry again, angry again, and angry again.
You are getting angry
So
now.
now we really have to get rid of this loop. So it's like an infinite loop in computer science. So your computer gets really stuck if you have an infinite loop. Your brain also gets stuck in this infinite loop. So you have to take a closer look. Put the magnifying glass on this loop in order to find out what's happening here and why we get rejected and rejected again.
Is it kind of studies what you are doing now?
Kind
You
of.
tell me
We
at
get
the end.
angry now.
We're getting angry. We're waiting.
You know that, so learning increases with the emotional state. So if you have a neutral emotional state, you don't catch any information.
Okay.
So,
That's on purpose.
yeah, I have to induce
you're
some
working hard to make
emotional,
us
certain emotional state in you so that to learn things.
I know this works.
So we put our magnifying glass on the infinite loop, and then so this is what we can see. So you are the researcher, the young researcher. You send your article. In fact, the article is received by the editor. So each journal has one editor, many editors. Depends on the journal. If it's an important journal, it has many editors, and there's an editor-in-chief. And then the editor does an initial screening for your article. So does the topic apply to, I mean, is it relevant to the journal? Then do you fill the requirements? And we'll see what that means later on. And he just so does an overview of your article. If he sees that your article is it's okay, he sends it to the reviewers. So he asks reviewers, sometimes they are blind reviewers, so they remove the names, sometimes not, and most of the times the reviews are not blind. And then the reviewers are asked to do a thorough analysis of your work. So they look at the format and they look at the content, of course. And we'll detail that later on. The reviewers then send their opinions, comments, and suggestions to who? To the editor, of course. And then the editor decides. So this is the loop. And he decides and he notifies the researcher with his decision. So you see the loop? In fact, you only see it from your side, but you're only one component of this loop. The editor and the reviewers are very important actors in this thing.
And who are the reviewers? Are there professionals in the same field or different?
So we are going to talk about it later, but in general, the reviewers, they are selected in general by the editor, sometimes also suggested by you. You can sometimes suggest reviewers. In general, they are expert in the field of this article. And of course, sometimes they are even in the editorial board of the journal, but most of the times not. So Of course, who is the judge here? The judge is the editor. So the editor decides, and the reviewers are sort of consultants. They give opinions, they give comments, so they are very important. But the one who really decides is the editor. Of course, most of the times he's going to adhere to what the reviewers say to him, but not, not absolutely. It's not absolutely compulsory for him. And of course, since he is the judge, there's this is the normal look, the regular look, but sometimes there's a shorter look. Because of course the editor may decide at the initial stage to reject your article, and this is quite common. So he rejects straight away, and up to 60% of the papers are rejected by the editor. Straight away. You send your article, it doesn't even get to the reviewing process. It's immediately rejected. And because the topic does not fit into the journal, because you did not meet the requirements which are listed in the author guidelines of the journal, or because he sees that it's really of poor quality, of course, when compared to other papers he's receiving. So he thinks that, well, you will get rejected anyway, so he rejects you quite quickly from the beginning. But in very rare cases, the editor might even accept your work if he's really if his mind is completely blown away by your article. If he can actually accept your article and publish it straight away without even sending it to the reviewers. So sometimes you can accept it very quickly. It may happen. It's quite rare, in fact, but it may happen because the editor is the judge, so he can do everything. Now, so, in fact, the main problem of what causes this emotional distress we have is that we are not really understanding what's happening out there. And then, who decides the article's fate, actually? So, it's all a problem of Q. So, you, as a young researcher, are looking to the green side of the cube. You say, my grass is green. I have a wonderful work. I have a wonderful paper. And you think that you'll get accepted, of course. However, the editor has tons and tons of articles to see and to check. So he on average, an editor gets 10 times 10 times the number of articles he publishes, so he needs to have. So he gets really a very, very big amount of articles, and he has to reject. So your work, in fact, is just maybe a couple of papers into this ton of this mass, this pile of papers out there. And then the reviewer sees the blue side of the cube. The reviewer really checks with his magnifying lens, he checks your article, and he has a completely different point of view, and we'll see why and how. In fact, so let's take a look at the upper side of the cube, the yellow side of the cube, what the editor sees and thinks. So, the editor, of course, is a human being, after all, and as every other human being, he has things that he dislikes and things that he likes. Of course, don't forget that the editor is the judge. If you know what the judge likes, chances are you get accepted. If you do what the judge dislikes, of course, chances are that you get rejected. So, the main problem of each editor is the mass of work he has. He has tons of papers, tons of manuscripts. He has to filter them. And don't forget that the number of submissions is increasing every year. So, and it's getting harder and harder to find reviewers. Don't forget that reviewers are doing reviews on a voluntary basis. They are not paid for this, and with the increasing number of submissions, it gets harder and harder to find available people to review papers.
So why are we paying money?
In most cases, you're not paying money when you submit an article. In the vast majority of cases, of course, sometimes you have to pay money, but that's only for open access articles. Typically, open access articles are open for everyone. So the journal gets money from the submitters. But most journals are not open access, and they get money from, not from the submitters, but from the people who view your article. You have to pay in order to read the whole article. So open access, is a different, and money does not go to the reviewers. So money goes to the journal, to the editorial board, but not to the reviewer, definitely not. So the review is always free and not paid. So now, with the increasing number of submissions, with the difficulties to find reviewers, of course, this leads also to an increase of rejection at initial screening. And this is not a bad thing if you think about it, because if you get rejected by the editor, you get rejected very quickly. So you have a reply within 1 or 2 weeks. You won't have to wait for months. So you don't really waste time. It's sometimes good to be rejected by the editor in order to save time. Now, what does the editor love? According to you, what's the editor's biggest
Original
love?
articles?
No.
Well written? Good
No.
results?
Not money. What's his ambition?
Concise.
Bigger samples?
No. He does not care about your article in particular.
An article that's consulted very frequently.
Yeah, almost.
Very quickly.
Yeah, cited. So what do we call this? So an article which is cited in many other articles. This leads to
Reference.
no.
Rated
How do we rate the journals?
Index, a good index.
The
Impact.
impact factor. So the editor's biggest love, according to most people, is the impact factor. So the editor has a journal. All he wishes is to get his journal to higher ranks, and so to get a higher impact factor. So that's all he cares about. He does not care about you being sad or angry in your room. Okay? So, what's the impact factor? So, the impact factor of a journal in a given year is, in fact, the number of times that all items published in the 2 previous years were cited in that year. For example, if we take this year, so at the end of the year, so at the beginning of next year, impact factors for 2016 will be published, and so that corresponds to the number of citations in 2014, 2016, divided by the total number of articles in 2014 and 2015. Okay? Did you get that?
Yes.
So it's a measure of the number of citations, let's say. So, in other terms, if your article is likely to be cited, chances are you get accepted. If it's unlikely to be cited, chances are that you get rejected. So, what makes an article citable or frequently cited, according to you? The subject, So if it's a hot topic at the moment, so if you have many papers talking about the subject, so it's sometimes a fashionable topic, then you are more likely to get accepted. Methodology, not really. That what makes really the article cited?
The originality of the
The originality, not really. If you are very original but talking about the
Statistics.
topic,
Study works.
More
Study
cases.
works.
of course, quality of work and so on. Yeah, but
Statistics.
yeah, but no, that's not the main point. So I'll invert the question. The articles which are the least likely to be cited are
Case reports.
case reports, definitely. So,
Meta-analysis.
if you do meta-analysis, well, you have a very, very good chance to be accepted, but that's very, very hard to do.
Prospective studies.
Reviews, literature reviews are much more likely to be cited. So they are much more likely to be accepted than original research. Don't forget that, because if I am willing to write an article about, let's say, schizophrenia, I don't know, about the treatment of negative symptoms in schizophrenia, the first thing to do is that I will be looking for reviews first, for meta-analyses, for reviews. But I will not be really looking into case reports, into one patient who got better on fluoxetine. Okay? So, case reports are the least likely to be accepted because they are least likely to be cited, of course. And then, so that's what most people would tell you. The editor's biggest love is the journal's impact factor, but I don't agree with that. What do you think is the editor's biggest love? Actually, not money. Don't forget he's a human being.
Happiness.
Faith,
Satisfaction.
progress, not faith,
Yeah.
success.
Ego.
Oh,
So his ego is very important. And why do I add this to the balance? Because it weighs very heavily. So, very commonly, an editor is also a researcher, of course. He published work. And in general, he published many papers about your topic, because you're submitting your work to a journal about the same topic as, generally, the editor is very likely to have written many articles in your topic, the topic you're dealing with. If you don't cite the editor, if you don't take into account his work, chances are that you get rejected. So you have to check who the editor is or the editorial board, and go look for their articles and read them and cite them. Because everyone likes to be cited.
That's very
important. So if you use a scale that is developed by the editor, he will accept your work straight away, even if it's poor. He will accept it because you are using his work.
Because if he rejected it, means that he's rejecting
Yeah,
himself.
he is rejecting the work based on his own, on his very own scale. No, he will never do that. So even if it's poor, even if it might affect the impact factor poorly, yeah, he will accept it because that gives him self-satisfaction. Don't forget, he's a human being after all. So I think that's even more important than the impact factor. So keep that in mind. This is a very important tip for you. Very important tip. Before submitting any article, go look at what the editor has published in that field and try to cite him as many times as you can. And to agree with everything he said.
Can I say just the journal?
Yeah?
Can I just cite the journal, not the editor?
Yeah, that's also, that's an important point you're saying here. If you cite the journal, it's important because you increase the impact factor of that journal. So it's good. But it's always best. The best is to cite the editor. But yeah, citing articles published in the journal is also an important thing to do. Of course, if you want to be accepted. So we've seen the yellow part, the yellow side of the cube. Now let's move to the blue side of the cube, what the reviewer sees and thinks. So of course, don't hesitate to interrupt me whenever you wish. If you have questions, if you have remarks, interrupt me. Okay? So what do you think a reviewer thinks when reading your article? What are the thoughts that a reviewer is likely to have when reading your manuscript?
To see his name.
Yeah, where is my name? Where is my... Yeah, that's a very important thing. So, did this guy look at my work? Did he cite my work? Yeah, this is maybe the most important thought, but there are other thoughts too.
What's the methodology?
Yeah, of course, no. You will think about it, but everyone, I'm talking really about the tips. Of course, if your article is a very good quality, of course you are much more likely to get accepted. But yeah, you don't need me to tell you this. This is known to everyone. But don't forget that reviewers don't have much time. So if your article is too complicated to read, if he does not really understand your hypothesis from the first time he reads it, he will reject it. He will say, what's this rubbish? I don't have time to waste this rubbish to understand, I don't know, a very complicated hypothesis. Go straight to the point. Go straight to the point. If you don't go straight to the point, you get rejected. Okay? So, don't get ultra-complicated hypotheses. Ultra-complicated hypotheses may be very original, very correct, very interesting, but yeah, if they are not clearly understandable, and of course, if you are not a very famous author, you are likely to get rejected. So, don't forget that the reviewer has his family, his kids, his work, his leisure activities. So he's already too busy. He won't spend much time on your article. Of course, if it's interesting, yeah, okay. But if it's too complicated, yeah, he will just say, please reject this paper. And then he's not paid for this. So this is very important.
We have a question. What is he gaining
Of
from
course, the reviewer is interested also in the reviewing because he's an expert in the field. He likes his work. He really enjoys also reading articles. But as long as they are well written, clear, and so on. But if it's of course, I'm talking here about articles from beginners. I'm not talking about articles written by very professional and very experienced people. But if you are a beginner, he's likely to get annoyed by what you are writing because he thinks that the quality is not really good. Of course, if we try to publish something, we don't have enough experience and to publish a very high quality manuscript. Now, of course, we'll just get an average manuscript. And for an expert in the field, what you are saying may be boring. And then, of course, what Dr. Yusra said, the most important of all is the ego. Why doesn't he or she cite me? This is very important. So, be careful and try to cite as many people as you can. Try not to forget to cite important articles in your topic or in your field. This is very important. So now, what do you see, in fact? So this slide is mainly for people who are really beginners, so who have not submitted any article yet. I think there are many of you here. So what are the steps a researcher does, in fact, in order to get published? So of course, the first step is to find an idea, or maybe to steal an idea from your supervisor. But yeah, you have to get an idea. Then you have to carry out, of course, to design and then carry out the study. You will have to analyze the results, then to write a manuscript. So I think all of you know these steps already. But after that, you have to find a journal, and we'll see how to find a journal to publish to. This is not a very easy step, and you will see. Then you have to adapt to the journal requirements. And this is a very important step we'll be discussing too. And then you have to actually submit the manuscript, and there's also a submission process you have to go into. And then you have to wait. And then you get the decision, and we'll see what type of decisions you can have. So what does the decision you get look like? According to you, what are the most common decisions one might get for after submitting an article?
Accepted or rejected?
So accepted and rejected, of course, but no, these are, accepted is the least likely decision you may get. Rejected is probably the most common one, but there are changes. So there are very often they say minor changes or major changes. So you have 4 types of responses. Of course, this is just to simplify things, to make things simpler. But okay, so the first step is the first possibility is that you get rejected, major revision, minor revision, or accepted. But how do these terms translate into our everyday language? Let's say. So, what does rejected mean?
It's a no.
It's a no. So,
Look for another journal.
Yeah, exactly. So submit elsewhere. Forget about submitting our journal. So, if you get major revision, what does that mean?
We can accept it if you change what.
If we change a big part of the article.
Exactly. So, yes, if. So that's not a bad answer to have. This is even a very good answer to have, because you have really pretty good chances to get accepted afterwards. Of course, you have to really do all the modifications which were requested by the reviewers. So, but if you are able to answer all the points the reviewers made, then you will very likely be accepted. So this is not a bad answer. This is not a bad decision. What does minor revision mean? So in general, major revision means that there are some parts you have to, for example, shorten the article. You have to remove a part of the article to add the part. So you really have to modify the article. You have to do some additional statistical work. You really have some real work to do there. Minor revision means that you can do the work in one day probably, because minor revision means there's one reference which is incorrect and 2 commas and then 3 words which are not correctly spelled and maybe 1 or 2 sentences to add. So this is minor revision. So that basically means we accept, you're almost there, we accept your article, but it's just a matter of time. We just can't say yes for the moment, but we'll say it next time.
But do they point out what are the mistakes?
Of course. So we'll see that. So of course we are seeing the different sides, and you don't have the complete picture yet. But of course, with every decision you have, and this is the next slide, you always have the review. So they send you what the reviewers said. Okay?
Even when it's rejected?
Of course.
Yes?
Of course. So, and then if you are accepted, what does that mean?
You're perfect.
Yeah, you have to celebrate. That's all. Okay, so you just have to wait for your article to get published. That's all. And then, so what's is very important, what Lamia said, in fact, even if you get rejected, and regardless of the decision, you still gaining something, you're getting something. You're getting reviews. You're getting free expert reviews. This is very, very, very important. I mean, you probably don't really get the importance of getting reviews. Many people would be willing to pay to have such reviews. So even if you get rejected, you did not waste your time actually, because you get very precious reviews, and then these reviews will make you able to edit your manuscript, to improve it, to enhance your chance to be accepted, and then it also lets you learn how to write the next articles. So you are learning. And let's not forget, as the Japanese proverb says, fall 7 times and stand up 8. If you have never fallen, that really means that you have never walked. So you have to get rejected, and with every rejection you get the reviews. The problem is that we are often angry and sad when getting that rejection reply. So we say that, yeah, these reviewers did not read my article very well. What they are saying is rubbish. Yeah, but they did not get what I mean. Maybe other reviewers would have been able to appreciate my work. And then you just send your very same article as is to another journal, and you will get rejected because your article is not up to the standards. So if it gets rejected, then there's a reason, and you have to improve your article. If you don't improve, so chances are that you will get rejected again and again. So it might be a little bit, sad, and you might be angry to know that once you get the decision, and after all these weeks and months of work, you have to get back to a previous step. In fact, you're not getting back to the initial step, generally. You're just getting back to write the manuscript. So you have to find another journal to adapt, again, to the new journal requirements, to submit, to wait, and then to get another decision. This is, in the worst scenario. Yeah.
But what if they write that our methodology is not right? So we have to go back.
Yeah, of course. If your article is really, really worthless, if it's really, really poor, of course you won't be able to publish it anywhere. But chances are so if your article is, acceptable, you have to. So in order to be able to publish it, you have to improve it somehow, and we are going to see how. Most articles get rejected not because they are very poor, because of major defaults that make or defects, but most probably because of formatting issues, and we will see what.
But if they say that the cause of rejection is the lack of originality of the subject, the methodology is quite good one, but the subject isn't that
Original. Yeah. You still have a chance to be accepted in another journal. Of course, journals. There are journals which are very, very, very strict because they have very, very high impact factors, and then you have journals with much lower impact factors, and you are much more likely to be accepted in a journal with a lower than with a higher impact factor. So. If it lacks originality, originality is a very big bonus, but it's a bonus nonetheless. So if there's not a very, very big mistake in the methods or something like that, you will very probably get accepted, but maybe not in a very good journal. But it's also okay. It's not a huge problem. So don't forget this. This is very important. Rejection finally means enhanced article and enhanced chances once you resubmit the article. So if you really understand that, then you will certainly be rejected once but not again and again, because you really have to take into account what the reviewers tell you. Now, back to the start. So, of course, the idea is not, is to decrease the likelihood of being rejected. So, in every single step, there are some tips to avoid being rejected, to increase your likelihood of being accepted. And we'll see that. So we're going through the steps, and for each step we'll see what makes you more likely to get accepted or more likely to get rejected. So here, let's start with the idea. What are the key points here according to you? So in this step, the idea, what makes your work more or less likely to be published according to you?
It must be something that is fashionable.
Okay, fashionable is very important. So if you have a fashionable topic,
Yeah.
it's definitely a bonus. So you really increase your chance.
Originality.
Originality.
Avant-garde.
Not
Yeah. So if it's original, if it's futuristic, or if it's
Futuristic.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, of course. But these are more like bonuses.
But hot subject, as you said, which is
Hey,
more
content
fashionable.
Of
fashionable.
course, yeah, this is very important. Yeah.
Review.
What else? So originality, yeah. Toughness of the
Type of the study.
the type of the study, yeah. But this is more into the design, not the
Yeah.
idea. But
Yeah. The
certainly.
next step.
Yeah.
Maybe the idea should come from the daily practice. It's something that you really
Yeah, it's something practical or with practical implications.
Applications. Or
Yeah,
therapeutic.
but not necessarily. I mean, you may write an article, and most articles in Nature do not,
Fundamental
which is, one
studies,
of the very best journals, do not really have, at least immediate practical implications. That's true to some extent, of course. Huh?
Topic with controversial result.
Yeah, topic. So that's the
The
same.
main
You're
idea.
rolling around the same idea. What do you think is the most common mistake a young researcher might make in this step?
It hasn't been done in my country.
It hasn't been done in your country. Yeah, this is good, huh? Because if you are the first one to do it, you have more. But this is not very important for the reviewer, because you have maybe the most common mistake is this one. In fact, an article refers to one idea, 2 ideas at most. So maybe 3 ideas if you are very experimental. But if you have the experience, yeah, maybe. But in general, stick with 1 or with 2 ideas. Most young researchers want to, talk about 1,000 topics and 1,000 ideas into one article. They want to squeeze their thesis into one article, and sometimes there are, 5 or 6 parts, completely independent parts. So they get, one article is one hypothesis. Don't try to look for everything, or to get a topic and to try to look for every single association that might be there. Okay? So one hypothesis, 2 at most. So otherwise, don't forget the reviewer won't understand what you're talking about. So if you are talking about 1,000 ideas at the same time, if you have 5 hypotheses, you won't understand what you're talking about. Okay? So keep that in mind. This is the very most important thing about ideas. Okay? One hypothesis, ideally.
Can I start the research with many hypotheses, but when writing the article, I limit the result that I will be publishing?
This is not a very honest thing to do, and not very correct way to do things, because in statistics, you have to have one hypothesis because, I mean, the design depends on your one hypothesis. If you have many hypotheses, the design should have been different. I mean, the design, the sample size is different. If your hypothesis is, for example, that SSRIs, or for example, is that fluoxetine or paroxetine are effective in, I don't know, in reducing impulsivity in borderline personality disorder, okay? So this is your hypothesis. You have two drugs. So normally, your sample size has to be larger, your p-values have to be adapted to the fact that you are testing for two things, because you have, so these are, I mean, don't forget that you are talking about probabilities. If you say A or B, then you are basically, so multiplying things. So, I mean, you are reducing or you are increasing the chance of getting a random association just by chance. So the whole methodology should be changed.
Can I have a research about risk factor and consequences at the same time?
So from an idea, I think that now you have to stick with the one. Now, of course, if you have enough experience, okay, that's okay. But for beginners, I think that it makes things much more complicated. You can split it into two manuscripts, actually. If you have two ideas, so you have two manuscripts. So the second point is to be simple and clear. Don't forget what we've said. The reviewer does not have much time to understand your overcomplicated hypotheses. So you have one hypothesis which is simply and clearly stated. And where do we state the hypothesis? Where do you think we write the hypothesis in the manuscript?
At the end of the introduction?
Exactly. So at the end of the introduction, so even the editor, when the editor reads your article, he's going to check the most important parts of the article. Maybe he's not going to read everything in details, but he's going to see the end of the introduction just to see what's your hypothesis. He's going to have a look at the results, a little bit at the discussion. So the end of the introduction is very critical. And the hypothesis should be simple and clear. If he does not understand your hypothesis, then say goodbye to your article. Useful. This is also very important. It's what you've said, practical, useful. It's a bonus, but it's not really compulsory. And then seducing and catchy, this is very important. As you said, a hot topic, a seducing topic, a catchy topic is much more likely to get, of course. So if you are writing, I don't know, an article about fluoxetine being effective in treating depression, you're unlikely to be accepted because that's not really what I would call seducing or catchy.
But how can be catchy in the scientific paper?
Yeah, that's the trick. You have to be at the same time rigorous in the content, but very catchy at the same time. This is very important. You have to seduce. If you are not able to seduce in your article, yeah, you may get accepted, of course, but you decrease your chances to be accepted. If you are seducing and catchy, you can move to a higher level, definitely. For example, when talking about the impact factor of the journals you're submitting to. This is very important. And you see how to be catchy and seducing while staying rigorous and scientifically accurate at the same time. So these two things may really go together. Of course, this may sound complicated a little bit, but it's very important to think that maybe you are not obliged to have all these features in your idea, but at least stick with one idea which is simple and clear and useful. That may be enough. Okay? So let's move to the second step. Design and carry out the study. So here what's important according to you?
The type of the study.
Hmm?
The type of
The type of the study, yeah, it's very, very important. In general, the methods are the most important thing. So, I mean, if your study design is good and robust, yeah, you will get published if you know how to write your article. Even if your idea is quite basic. If your methods are robust, yeah, this is really the most important thing, I think. Huh? So, but the most important thing to do, in order to design the study, you cannot design the study from scratch.
See what you see in the literature.
Yeah,
In the same
so
topic.
that's it. You have to read about the topic before starting to design the study. Please don't start to read the literature after getting the results. This is very common. So you have an idea, you carry out the study, and then, yeah, you start, when you are willing to write, you're starting to read the articles about the topic. Of course, that leads to disasters. Because, in fact, you cannot design the study, you cannot know what are the variables you are looking into, what are the most important parameters to insert into your study if you haven't really read the literature. So this is very important. This might sound basic, but I can assure you that 90% of young researchers conduct studies before reading a single article, a single paper about their work, about their topic. I think you don't disagree.
Yes.
Hmm?
We don't.
Second thing is to be accurate and rigorous. So the idea should be catchy, but the design must be rigorous and very accurate. So you can be seducing and catchy, and at the same time rigorous. So these are two different parts. I mean, in the design, you want to be catchy, you want to be seductive. You have to be really rigid, really accurate, really rigorous. But when thinking about the idea, you may be creative. It's even better to be creative, to be seducing. When choosing the idea. So. But here, yeah, you really have to be accurate and rigorous, scientific. And then, third thing is to adapt to obstacles. This is very, very important. So don't forget, you are working in certain settings, in certain conditions, in certain circumstances. So a researcher may do in the United States, for example, with a whole team of researchers, is not necessarily feasible in your settings, in Razi Hospital, for example. Okay, so you have to choose a design that is rigorous, that is accurate, but that is also feasible. So if the design, you have to get the balance. If you know, for example, that for this specific kind of study, you would need 500 individuals, I think you really have to find another idea. That's clear. You cannot perform a study on 500 patients on your own. Or if it involves, I don't know, very sophisticated biological analyses or things like that. So you have to adapt to obstacles and to know what you have, to know and to adapt to your settings. Okay, this is also very important. Now, analyzing the results. Yeah.
About the design, can I just get the design from another article and just do the same?
Of course, yeah. Of course. If you add something new, for example, you can. This is very important. You raise a very important thing. So I think, the easiest thing to do is to find another article, a previously published article, with more or less the same idea, and then to replicate the methods. You just have to add something new. For example, to say, yeah, this is the first study in the Middle Eastern region about this thing. We are not pretty sure that this applies to our culture. Or, yeah, you can do it, certainly. Or, for example, you find the same study dealing with people, for example, the patient with schizophrenia, and you take so you replicate the methods, the design, but you will, for example, examine patients with bipolar disorder or ADHD or don't know what. Okay, so this is even a very good thing to do for beginners. I think to replicate the methods. Of course, you can adjust, but you have to add something new. So now, as for the result analysis, so it's clear. You have one. So this is the very, very, very important issue. To stick to your hypothesis. I mean, I often get things, some emails asking me to do some statistical work, and then they ask me the following. Please check the associations between all the variables we have. And they have 120 variables, so 120 by 119, that makes around 4,000 associations to check for. So, of course, this is completely incorrect. You have a hypothesis. So statistics is all about probability, mathematics. You have one hypothesis, two at most. And then you just look for the associations which are linked to your hypothesis. Of course, you have other variables, but you are not obliged to use them, and you shouldn't use them and include them into your statistical method. So you can include them, of course, as covariates, as confounded variables, and so on, but you have really to stick to your hypothesis. If your initial hypothesis was to find or to look, for example, for an association between, I don't know, the dosage of the antipsychotic, for example, used, and the positive symptoms in schizophrenia. So don't look for the association between the positive symptoms and the marital status, please. Okay? So just look at, very important, just look at the association between the positive symptoms and the dosage of the antipsychotic maybe. And that, so this is very important. This is the most common mistake. Of course, if a reviewer or an editor sees that you are looking for associations everywhere, you will definitely reject your article. Then be rigorous. Here is another, in analyzing the results, you have to be rigorous. You have to choose the correct statistical tests and then to be able to justify them and so on. So here is another point where you shouldn't be catchy, but rather rigorous and accurate. And then limitations. So every design, every single study design, even the best study design has its limitations. So it's not a problem to have limitations. Even the best written articles have their own limitations. But the most important thing is to admit your limitations and to try to overcome them if possible. So sometimes there are some statistical workarounds to overcome some limitations of your study. Sometimes some limitations cannot be overcome, and then you have to state your limitations where in the manuscript.
In the discussion.
Yeah.
The first part of the discussion, just after speaking about the little thing about
Comparing our results
That's it.
at the end of the discussion.
It's a possibility. So this can vary from article to article. Some authors put it, as you said, So after some sort they put in the discussion, they summarize the most important findings, then straight away they put their limitations. This is one thing this is one way to do it. Or another common way to do it is at the end, the last part of your discussion, you put your limitations. But both are correct, huh?
With the strengths.
Yeah.
Strengths and
In fact, you can also generally you can put a paragraph called strengths and limitations. Strengths is what are the strengths of your study and what are the limitations. And you have to discuss actually the limitations. So you say, yeah, our sample size was small. Yeah, but you have to justify a little bit. Say, yeah, it was small because this condition is rare. Okay? Or because, I don't know, you have made, for example, an analysis which is costly, or you have to justify a little bit your limitations. Any questions or comments? Are you tired?
Yes, yes, yes.
That's what I see. Huh?
Is it a big problem if I don't put my limitation on paper?
You have 90% likelihood to get rejected by the editor without even getting into the review process. Yeah, you must put your limitations. Very, very highly recommended. Okay, so too tired?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I think that we are quite quickly. So the next step is writing the manuscript, and this is the most important step, maybe, because what's very, very important is that you focus too much on the content, but you forget that most rejections are due to the format. Okay? Why? According to you.
It should be clear.
Because it takes a general look at
It should be
it.
clear.
Should be easy to
Because
read
they
it.
look at the format even before.
Of course, you look at the format before. Of course.
It's more attractive.
Who among you thinks that this present is attractive? No one?
No.
Now, so you dislike it. Okay. And who thinks that this gift is who would accept this gift?
Small.
Okay, so there are at least some people here who would accept, who would say yes to this gift. But in fact, you don't know what's inside. I'll tell you that there's a diamond there, and there's some garbage in there. But you still have chosen, the well-wrapped gift. This is very, very important. So in more, let's say, psychological terms, this is due to the anchoring cognitive bias. This is very, very common in human beings. We generally, so anchoring bias refers to the common human tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information offered when making decisions. So when you make decisions, in fact, you have already made your decision after the first impression you get. So the first impression is never about the content, it's about the format. If he sees that you don't know how to structure your article, he won't even read it, okay? And this is very important. If he finds that your article is well written, the format is good, then he gets an overall good impression. Even if the content is just average, you will be accepted, okay? The format is really, really important. Of course, if he finds spelling mistakes, if he finds that the structure is absolutely chaotic, if he finds that you didn't even state your hypothesis at the end of the introduction, he reads the end of the introduction, does not find the hypothesis. Okay, he won't read a single word after that. He will just reject your article. And that's all. This is the anchoring bias. So, these are in fact the most important things to do when writing the article. So throughout the manuscript, the language should be correct, no spelling mistakes. If you have spelling mistakes, of course, that does not really sound like an interesting paper, and the editor or the reviewer will definitely get a very negative impression. Yeah.
As you are not like native English speaking people, so how can we get help to get an article well written in English?
Okay, this is very important, but figure out that most articles are written by non-native
Non-native
speakers.
Yes,
So-
but they may get help. No?
So I think that first you have to, every one of us should make an effort to improve one's English. This is a very important thing to do. Then you can also, of course, get the help from someone who speaks English better than you, or from a native English speaker. This is very important, at least at the beginning. But I also think that to have correct English is not very hard when writing articles. You are not going to write poetry in English. So writing scientific articles is much easier. The sentences are very concise, very accurate, very short. You're not asked to write, very poetical expressions. Of course, that's absolutely not recommended at all. This takes us to the second point. This is very important. This is very important because in my own experience, that's one of the most important matters I've seen. The style is often not concise and often not accurate. And guess why? Why do we have this tendency? Why do we have the tendency to write in a style that is neither concise nor accurate? Who finds the good answer? Why do we, here in this room, have the tendency to write very long sentences and very
Because we
complicated-
translate from French.
Because of
Take it French.
Definitely because of French. Because French people are able to talk for 1 hour
Without saying anything.
Any conclusion. So the French language, is really. If you read, and because also you read French articles, and articles written in French are more similar to poetry than to science in general, at least in psychiatry. So you have sentences which are 5 or 6 lines so long, very commonly, and then you translate from French, of course. And this is really the most horrible thing to do. Never translate from French, even if your English is very average. Try to write in English. It's much easier to write in English than to translate from French. Okay? And you have to be concise and accurate. Very concise. Seduce and be catchy. This is also very important. Throughout the manuscript. So try to induce emotions as I've tried to do just before. So if you are able to induce an emotion through your writing, then the writing will be catchy, and the one who reads your article will be able to read it and to follow your hypothesis. You have to catch him. Tell him, yeah, we are looking for this, but we are not sure if. So you have to be clear and quite seducing. Then in the introduction. So what do you think the introduction is for in an article? What do you write in an article introduction?
What was already done about the subject?
Yeah, this is important.
The
And
rationale of the subject. Why?
exactly. So you have to answer this question. What makes my study interesting? So this is the question you should answer in your introduction, okay? So I have seen introductions such as these. Depression is a very disabling disorder. It's very common, and it's so of course.
There's no interesting.
So it's not interesting. And if you are talking about, I don't know, the side effects of sertraline, please don't start with depression is a disabling disorder. And sertraline is an antidepressant drug. Okay? So you just really have to stick to your topic, enter directly into your topic, and then what makes my study worth reading, my paper worth reading. And then at the end, what's my hypothesis? If you forget this, then forget about getting published. Then the methods, you have to be detailed and clear, as we've said, and you have to think and to anticipate the possible critics. So when designing and when writing the methods, just imagine you are a reviewer and just anticipate the critics and answer them in your manuscript. Anticipate the critics. The results, this is very important. As I've said earlier, the results are the ones linked to your hypothesis. Okay? Please don't put, I don't know, irrelevant results. As we've said earlier, put only the results which are relevant to the hypothesis. If you put too many results, no one will understand and will catch what you're saying.
When writing the results of this, should I start with the main results or characteristic of the information and then?
It actually depends, but yeah, you can write sub-paragraphs into your results and start with the characteristics of your population. Why not? And then, but when reading the result, you have to get the impression that your main finding is very clear. I mean, I shouldn't really look and dig into your results section to find a tiny sentence about your main finding. The most important, so you can be creative and do everything you wish, but I mean, when reading the results, I should be able to find the main finding very easily, very quickly, either by putting a paragraph, sub-paragraph, and the main sub-paragraph should be this about this, or about, you can also start by it.
So is it better to make the results in the table than
Of course.
write?
This is very important, especially when the results are not very important. I mean, for example, if you are going to describe the population, that's not your main point. So you just put the table, and the more tables you have, the better it is, definitely. Don't put figures unless the figures are very important and catchy, and so the figures are sometimes important. They may be catchy, they may be able to illustrate your main finding, okay? But otherwise, tables are very, very, very recommended.
But we have to talk again about the results in the paragraph, right?
You can put really the
Most important.
most important. You can really put 2 lines for the simple characteristics and then put the table. And that's enough. So,
Can we have just a table of the results?
no, you should write a couple of sentences at least. Especially your main finding should be written. So the main finding should definitely be written, even if you have it in a table or in a figure. You have to write something about it and then add a figure to better illustrate or something. But for the secondary or the less important results, let's say, you can put a table and get rid of them. Okay? For the discussion, it's very important to stay nuanced. So, very important. So, in science, in medicine is not an exact science. Everything is said in terms of probability. This is likely, less likely, more likely, but we are really certain about very, very few things in medicine in general. So be nuanced, and yeah, it's not a problem if your results are very different from the previous studies. Just try to find an explanation why, and that's all. Okay? And then at the end, don't forget the limitations. Often the last chapter, but as you said, sometimes it's some authors start the discussion with it or put it just after the main findings.
In fact, putting it in the start, I take it from one editor, Professor Fanissar, and it's very famous in child psychiatry. And he said, when you put it in the beginning, you are humble, you know that you have limitation, but my results are very important, so I do when I'm doing the research.
this is I mean, point of view that's common. Many people would say this too. I agree too. But yeah, the other way to do it is more common. It is also correct. So if you do, I mean, both ways are correct. I think. Yeah, it's. I think also it may depend on the study. If you have many limitations, maybe you are more willing. You'll be more willing to write them at the beginning. You have fewer limitations. Maybe you leave them to the end. Yeah. So I think also it depends. I don't think we have to be rigid about it, but at least you have to put the limitations somewhere.
Yes, they told me that if you read an article and find limitation that isn't cited, they found 4 and you cited 2, it's a no, and no way you get a yes from him. So maybe there is other people that think the same way.
No, yeah. If he is really rigorous, if you wanna publish in a very good journal, of course. Because you are cheating, definitely. If you don't put your limitations, either you are not aware of them, and that makes you silly, or you are cheating and not honest. And in both cases,
it's not
you
good.
are not likely to of course, if they also sometimes they cannot stand that you're a beginner and the journal is not a very high quality journal. You're a beginner. You are probably unaware of that limitation. Yeah, they reject you. Yeah, they say no, but maybe they say yeah, major revision. But of course they will never accept it. But maybe they say major revision or they reject it. It depends. And then for the conclusion.
Before going to the conclusion, can we cheating also? I mean, without reading really the articles, finding a paragraph about it in another article and just using that paragraph and using the reference in our article.
I think that in order to be able to cite an article, yeah, of course it's recommended to read the whole article, but you can, overread it. I don't think it's obliged to read, you're obliged to read every single sentence of every single. For example, you have chapters, you know that this article deals with 2 things, and you're interested in one chapter. You can read that chapter, you can read across a little bit, overread it. I don't think it's cheating.
I'm talking about reading an article and finding a paragraph talking about what I want to discuss and just like, it's like a plagiarism.
Copy?
Yeah,
Copy.
something like that, like using the references and just changing a little bit so that it doesn't seem like
Of course that's
plagiarism.
plagiarism. But plagiarism. Yeah, of course not. But, so I didn't get your question. No, of course it's not. It's not an honest way to do things, but of course you get the idea. In general, how do you write the discussion? You have to read the articles or the parts of the articles about your topic, and then try to make your own conclusions. You integrate all of these, and then so if you don't integrate them, why should they publish an article that has already been published? Other questions or so otherwise in the conclusion, so what you have to answer, what's the take-home message? So in the conclusion, please don't repeat everything you've said earlier. It's not a summary of your article. You just put the take-home message, and then you open horizons at the end. And conclusions are generally brief. Of course, one exception is the conclusions of the thesis in the Tunis Medical School, where there are 6 pages of conclusion, where it's typically many theses, because people often read only read that. Okay, so now I don't know if you still have time. So you have to get quick. Okay, I think I'm going. The idea was to do an exercise together. To exercise on this abstract I have written, so it's a fake one, but it really summarizes all the mistakes you do in formatting. So this is how to get rejected. So if you want to get rejected, start with a title like this one. I think the idea was to divide you into teams and to work on it, but I think we don't have time, so I'm going quickly. Smoking and schizophrenia. So is this a title?
Too general.
So
How do you make it?
it's rather like Johawalas. So definitely not an article. So if you see this title, of course you get rejected. You won't even read the following word, which is introduction. So please be accurate. Accuracy is very important. So you are talking about so you have hypothesis, put this in your title. If I read you the title, I have to know the hypothesis. Okay? So no titles like these, please. Then, okay. In fact, this is the idea or the aim of the study is to see whether we have, for example, so the idea of the study is that the association between smoking and symptoms in schizophrenia. So this is the idea of the article. And look at how the introduction begins. And this is very common. These are mistakes I've commonly seen. This is very typical, very, very typical of what I have seen many times. Schizophrenia is a chronic psychosis. So as if someone who was reading an article about in a psychiatric journal didn't know that schizophrenia, wow, is a chronic psychosis. And of course, psychosis, it comes from French because psychosis just means psychotic symptoms, actually. So it's a chronic psychotic disorder rather than chronic psychosis. Because psychosis, when you say psychosis, everywhere in the world, except in France, Tunisia, that means that you have hallucinations, delusions, and disorganized thoughts. That's what it means. It may be due to dementia, or so psychosis is not a correct term. It's not a condition. Psychosis is not a disease. It's a symptom, or a syndrome. So chronic psychotic disorder, and of course. Take a look at this, characterized by the coexistence of paranoid delusion. This is very common, and this is really very typical. So schizophrenia, of course, in France and in Tunisia, and also in other parts of the world till the 50s or 60s, used to be characterized by the coexistence of paranoid delusion. Of course, paranoid delusion in English, paranoid means suspiciousness. So you have delusion of suspiciousness. So there's absolutely no difference between paranoid and paranoiac in English. So they are both called paranoid. So it's just the theme or the topic of the delusion. That's it, paranoid delusion. So it has nothing to do with délire paranoid. Absolutely nothing to do. And of course, those who are reading your article don't know anything about what you're talking about. So he would say, yeah, no, it's not paranoid delusion. Sometimes it's delusion of grandeur, or maybe it's a reference delusion. It's not characterized by paranoid delusion at all. So this is very important. Don't translate from French, and please start reading things in English to know that what paranoid delusion means. Okay, dissociative syndrome, and this is the best actually. Of course, dissociative syndrome has absolutely nothing to do with syndrome dissociatif that the French psychiatrists used to talk about in the 19th century. Well, actually, if you don't know, we are already in the 21st century, and dissociation now is a so what do we call dissociation nowadays? So there are symptoms which are it just refers to the depersonalization, generalization, and these kinds of symptoms. Dissociative disorders are described in the DSM-5, where you have your emotions which are cut off. That's what dissociation means. And definitely, so dissociation is more common in borderline or in PTSD than in schizophrenia. And autistic syndrome. Of course, autistic syndrome, so English or English speaking psychiatrists know about autism, yeah, but they don't really see the link between autism and schizophrenia, actually. So, of course, you get rejected with something written like this, okay? Huh? With, this is also a very good thing, the deficitary evolution. So, no, because this is really, really very, very typical. And first of all, this refers to the definition of schizophrenia 1 century ago, or 2 centuries ago, Kriplin's definition. Okay, first. Secondary, the deficitary is not an English word, and evolution, here and in medical field we use the course of a disease. But every time I read a paper written by a Tunisian guy, he says evolution. Of course, he copies that from French. And Google Translate, of course, is not able to. No, evolution is an English word. Is an English word, but it's not used in the medical field to say, I mean, evolution. Evolution is the course of a disease. And not, this is the technical
Use
term.
Google Translation.
No, actually, I've written that abstract, but based really on things I've read. These are really things I've read. And of course they got rejected. Okay, and of course, so don't forget the aim of the study is to see the link between smoking and schizophrenia symptoms. And he's talking about deficitary evolution. And a prognosis that's frequently poor. Okay. As if I didn't know. Because of poor functioning in social, professional, and other important domains. Okay. Smoking is very frequent in schizophrenic patients. So this is also a translated sentence from French, and of course, I mean, since or decades, we no longer use the term schizophrenic patients. Please don't say schizophrenic patients, depressive patients, bipolar patients. So, patients with bipolar disorder, patients with schizophrenia, patients with borderline personality disorder, patients with dementia, I don't know what. But don't say schizophrenic patient. Okay? So the patient is not defined by his condition. He's a human being. He has a condition, but he is not a condition. Okay? Then this parameter, okay, this is something I really like about articles we write. This parameter, of course, I don't know so it's very, very inaccurate. What does the word this parameter refer to? Of course, it refers to smoking, but I mean, people tend to try to avoid repetition, but repetition is very, very good in scientific articles. Please use repetition. Repeat, because when you repeat it, you are more precise, more accurate, and they understand you. So when the review reads this parameter, he has already forgotten the first sentence. So he doesn't know what this parameter actually refers to. And okay, probably leads to worse prognosis because because of the somatic complications of smoking and because of the interference with the neuroleptic drugs. This is another thing to avoid. Please don't use the word neuroleptic. Don't use it ever again, unless you are talking about the history of psychiatry. If you are talking about the history of psychiatry, yeah, use the term neuroleptic, but this term hasn't been used for, 20 or 30 years now, at least in the English literature. Of course, if you read in French, you will only read neuroleptic, and you translate that into neuroleptic. Please don't use the word neuroleptic again. And then, method, of course, there's no hypothesis. This is also very common. This is very, very common. Okay, no, it's not a problem, okay? We will do methods, yeah. We conducted a cross-sectional study among 30 schizophrenic patients from Resna. Okay, I am a reviewer from Australia. I'm supposed to know what Resna Hospital is about.
From Razi.
Okay, yeah, Resna Hospital, yeah. And 30 schizophrenic patients, so same error again. And why 30? How did you select these 30 patients? So this is completely rubbish. So the diagnosis of schizophrenia was made according to the DSM-5 criteria. Okay, we used this is very common too. This is a very, very common sentence. You find it in 99% of the abstracts submitted by television people. We used a semi-structured questionnaire which contains the following data: age, gender, marital status, profession, geographic. So it's an abstract about smoking and schizophrenia, the symptoms of schizophrenia. Profession, geographic origin. It's very important to know if he's from Cordoba or Gafsa. And number of children, of course. And then number of brothers and sisters, family history of psychosis, family history of mood disorders, personal medical history, insight, drug compliance, and everything. And then at the end, so you see smoking, which is the most important thing, is really drawn into these data. So you have smoking here, but it's only one word among others. So it has absolutely the same importance as the number of brothers and sisters. So, no, this is very common mistake. We are laughing about it, but recheck your manuscripts and you will see you have at least half of these mistakes. Okay, you have hypotheses. Let it stand out. These are the main variables. I don't care about the number of brothers and sisters. And then, of course, at the end, yeah, we also assessed, as if it was, a very secondary thing to do, we also assessed the psychotic symptoms using the PANSS. Yeah, okay. So, and then we entered and analyzed, of course, the PANSS, and then he writes what PANSS stands for. Of course, this is a formatting issue. This shows that you are totally novice. So, in all articles, you have to write the full term and then the opposite. Don't do it the other way around. This shows you are completely novice. Okay? So you have to write positive and negative symptom scale and then brackets PANSS. Okay? Not the opposite. Very important. And then we enter and analyze the data using SPSS. Wow. How? Maybe using a keyboard. But what did you analyze? How? This is the most important thing. In your method section. But we are talking more about the profession and the geographic origin. So you see, this is a very typical abstract. And then here you say the results. Okay, this is very common. 66.66% were male. Okay, the mean age was 28. Okay, of course, never start a sentence using a figure. A sentence always starts by a word. So if you want to start by 20, you have to write it in 4 letters. 20. T-W-E-N-T-Y, not the figure. Never use a number like this at the end, the beginning of a sentence. The mean age was, then 10%, so it's also were married. Okay, this is an abstract, so this is very important thing. 10, so 33% were married, 50% were single, and 5 were divorced. Okay, more than half were from Siena or Belgium. Very important. as someone coming from Australia or I don't know, or China, yeah, I would really understand the importance of this.
مو سيكتور هذاك.
It's very important. It's giving back to the sectorization policy in radiology. Completely pointless and useless, but I assure you, in 99.9% of the questionnaires in Razi Hospital, you find geographic origin, of course, and this is very important. Okay, then he gives you a figure to say, distribution by gender. Please don't use figures unless you are representing your main findings. What's that? So, okay, I think we don't have much time to do, but to learn through this, but okay. So then here, at the end, we also found a correlation. Okay, I think this is very important. In our study, we found the correlation between the PANSS, positive subscale, and smoking. Okay, but is it really a correlation? Smoking, for instance, said yes or no. So it's, beware of this very common mistake. Correlation is a very statistical term. The term which you can put everywhere is association or link. Please don't say correlation when it's the link between one qualitative and one quantitative variable. To talk about correlation is a very specific statistical word. So it's the association between two quantitative variables, okay? So that's what I wanted to say. Then we move to the discussion, of course. In our study, most patients were jobless. This is very common because we were told, I was told, you have to discuss every single result. And of course, it's very important to say that your patients are jobless or not. So in our study, most patients were jobless. Of course, this is an article about the association between smoking and schizophrenia symptoms. And Smith reported that only 15% of schizophrenics, and this is even better than schizophrenic patients. Schizophrenics really, 15% of schizophrenia. This is really. So you see, this is completely done. Then smoking was correlated, of course it's not correlated, it was associated with the PANSS positive score. This is consistent with the results of this study, who reported more positive symptoms in smoking patients, but also fewer negative symptoms. This result is also similar, this is also very common. This result refers to what? Please don't use this and that in the scientific area. This result, unless it's very clear. But here, it's really not very clear. And then conclusions, this is also a very common conclusion. Schizophrenia is a disabling disorder. I don't know what this thing has to do with your study. But yeah, you see that. Schizophrenia is a disabling disorder. And it's a very, very precious piece of information. Smoking can add an additional burden to the disease. So please tell me what's the difference between the conclusion and the introduction. As if you didn't write anything. Okay, the conclusion, so you have to write the conclusion according to your study results, of course. So now I'm going very fast through this. You have to find a journal. Some tips. First of all, the discipline. So if you have a topic which deals with psychiatry but also with endocrinology, for example, you are more likely to get accepted in the journal of endocrinology because it seems more original for them. If you are talking about, I don't know, the association between diabetes and depression, psychiatrists are less, they are not really, they don't see the originality in that. But endocrinologists might do. So keep that in mind. Then, the indexation, the impact factor. The higher you go, the more prestigious your article is, and the more likely you get cited with the so. If you can get high, get high. But also, if you have a modest work, don't try to send it to a very prestigious journal because you'll get rejected anyway. Of course, it's not very bad because you might get some reviews, but I fear that you probably won't even have the reviews because you'll get rejected by the editor. So, then submission to deadline to decision time. This is a very so this is a fact no one wants to wait. So in many journals you see that they tell you, yeah, our submission to decision time on average is 2 months. That's a good time. So this is another criterion. And then the acceptance rate. So of course, if you get high, the acceptance rate drops. If you want to publish in American Journal of Psychiatry, so the chances are that you get rejected, of course, unless your article is very, very good. But of course, acceptance rate. So if I know my article is so I might go and I have an exam, or for example, I really need to get published soon. I check the acceptance rate. Then, from technical point of view, you have to look for the journal among the references. Your references. That's what Taqwa said. Because if you look into your references, you're sure that for one, the journal fits into the topic, and then you cited the journal, which might increase the impact factor. This is very important. Look for the journal among your references. And then, if you can't, so this is a website, webofknowledge.com, which lists the journals by specialty or by field, all the journals with their impact factors. So, for example, you see here the best, the psychiatric journal with the best impact factor is World Psychiatry with an impact factor of 20. 20 is very, very high. So, if you have an impact factor about 1, it's already good. It's already good. Now, for example, the very best French journal is Encéphale, and its impact factor is 0.5. It's 0.5, so 0.5. This is the very best French. Okay? And of course you wait at least 1 year to get published there. And then another thing to do, there's a tool. I don't find it very, very attractive. It's on Elsevier website. You go there and you find the tool named manuscript. Find the journal. Then you find the journal, you copy paste your abstract, and then they find journals which might fit.
This website? This
Elsevier, not Web of Knowledge. Elsevier.
Okay.
You put there, you put submit your article, and inside submit your article you get this tool. You copy paste your abstract, and they give you a list of journals. But I don't think it's very, very efficient.
Is it recommended to send the article in different journals?
It's absolutely forbidden to submit the article at the same time to many journals, to more than one journal. It's completely forbidden. So you have to wait for the journal to reply, or if you don't have time, you write to them, you tell them, yeah, I cancel my submission, and then you can submit it again. Okay? So then adapt to journal requirements. Every journal has guide for authors. So you have author guidelines on. So you enter the journal website, and really you have to be very, very obsessive compulsive. So you have to, in general, you have to read the submission checklist, if there is one. And in general, you have to check the word number. You have to shorten the article many times. And then you have to check the structure, the exact structure the journal requires, the references. Every single journal has its own journal reference style. Okay, You have to adhere to that. The formatting, sometimes they tell you, yeah, you have to use this font, this particular font with double line, and so on. So they have specific requirements for figures and tables. So and then you have to write a cover letter. This is very important too. So every time you move from one journal to another, these are the things you check. Okay, these are the things you have to adapt. Okay, so then you have to submit. So in general, you submit. There's almost always now an online submission system. You create your account and you submit. You are going to submit the files. This is generally, and then you get an email telling you that your manuscript got actually submitted, that they received your article. Then during waiting, in fact, you get email notifications. They probably after 1 or 2 days, they tell you, yeah, your manuscript has been assigned to an editor. The editor does the initial screening, as we've said earlier, and then if it's okay, he sends to peer review, to 2 or 3 reviewers, and then so you get an email assigned, your paper has been assigned to peer review, and then you get the decision. Okay? So, now, even if you get rejected, this is very important. You get precious comments, an opportunity to improve the paper, and to learn to improve future papers. But now, before you take the road, it's very important. I'm going to cite, so when Abu Nawais, the very famous poet, wanted to become a poet, he went to Malik al-Ahmar, to Khalaf al-Ahmar, sorry, and he told him, I want to become a poet. He told him, go learn 1,000 poems and then come back to me. So, before going on the road, you have to get your luggage ready. And what's inside that luggage? Articles. You have to read before you write.
الفيل أزرق.
And then you have to learn some statistics. Even if you are not going to be in the academic field, in order to be able to really understand one article, you have to get some basic statistics. You have to understand at least the basic statistics. Otherwise, you will go to to misunderstand everything they say. Okay? And then, guess what? English. So this is also in the bag. You have to, in order to be able to take the road, we have to improve our English. This is very, very important. Please start reading in English. Forget about reading in French. Forget about it. So unless you want to do some shopping in Paris, forget about French and French. So the take-home message is: grab your luggage before going on the road. Don't forget, you won't go too far if you don't have enough luggage on you. Second thing, a good idea is very important thing. Don't forget this.
Yes.
The anchoring bias, the formatting is at least as important as the content. Okay? And then the most important of all, fall 7 times and stand up 8. So I think that if you came to this workshop willing to no longer see this stamp, then I think that
We failed
you failed, because I think that as long as you're willing to submit, you will certainly get rejected. So unless you submit nothing, you will get rejected. But I hope that after this, you will get you get to see this stamp too from time to time. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very
It's a
much.
bit late.